Our first review of the day is going to be for the film Silent Night. Silent Night is a movie directed by the legendary director John Woo. John Woo, who hasn't made an American film in 20 years. His last American film was Payback. So 20 years ago, yeah, he made that movie. Here, you have a revenge film starring Joel Kinnaman. Joel Kinnaman, who plays a father, husband, son dies in a in the crossfire of a gangbanger shootout, and that sets him on the path of revenge of hunting down all these gang members and killing them. Uh, that's basically it. That's basically the whole premise of the movie, and the whole you have a gimmick of this movie of like Silent Night, coming out during holiday time, December, playing up on that kind of holiday theme there. Is that when he's hunting down these gangbangers, they end up shooting him in the throat, and he ends up losing his voice, and not able to talk throughout the duration of the film. And you kind of, I guess that must have affected everybody in the film because when they say Silent Night, they really mean it's a silent night because not only do you have Joe Kinnaman not talking, you also have other characters in this movie who don't talk really all that much at all. The gangbangers in this movie don't really talk at all. Kid Cudi, who's in this movie, who's a detective, he doesn't, he barely even talks in this movie. So I guess they take that concept very, very seriously there. And it's your Punisher type revenge film here. He's learning to train and fight. And hey, if you can, watch some YouTube videos and do some pull-ups and swing around the kettlebell, hey, you can become a wrecking machine. You can become your own personal Punisher there if you do that. So that's kind of the setup here. And John Woo, known for such movies as Hard Boiled, known Hard Target, Face Off, some really classic films here with it. And I was with this one, I could say I was very disappointed by it. But I'm gonna pass it on to Dusk and get his thoughts. What did you think about Silent Night?
As a John Woo film, yeah, some of the action could be desired. It's a very simple premise. As you said before, our main character be is unfortunately made silent after he tries to avenge his son that ends up dying in a gang related shooting. You don't find this out until about, let's say, 15 minutes in. The first 15 minutes is actually quite interesting because it kind of captures you in media res and makes a little odd choices on the setup, and then some of the digital zoomings that happen later. I don't know if you saw this, but at one point when his wife shows up in the hospital, they do like this weird zoom in into her eye and then zoom into her eye again thing.
Mm,
I don't know if that kind of caught me off guard. There's some interesting choice camera angles where I went, that's interesting, especially considering his plethora of action movies. This is probably one of his more weaker ones. Now, that's not to say there isn't good action in this movie or there isn't decent action in this movie. I actually think there is some pretty good setups and pretty decent shootouts. It's still a John Woo movie, even when he's not being his best. He's still doing a better job than some of the average action movies I've seen actually quite lately. But for the premise, I there could have been more Christmas themes, especially if you're going to go with the whole Silent Night vibe,
mhm.
and B, honestly, you didn't need as much story as they ended up putting in there to try and put it in. They actually could have cut like the first 15 minutes and just had guy wants revenge, newspaper clippings show things happen, guy in revenge mode, and just had it all be action the entire time. I
Mm.
mean, is it really any? Is it? I mean, this isn't the first time that he's made a movie where a guy or two guys to go and take on an entire mob and barely win. They did that with A Better Tomorrow and its sequel later on. He did that with Hard Boiled, which inspired basically every action director ever. And why shouldn't it? It has some of the best action scenes ever. If anyone has not seen Hard Boiled, I highly recommend it. That opening restaurant shootout and then later the hospital shootout is so fantastic.
Mm. Yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean that's kind of what gets me because let me pull up the trailer here for
Mm.
Hard Boiled here. Because yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, that movie, like the legendary John Wick, Hard Boiled at one point was considered greatest action movie ever made. At one point there,
Still
by a
kind of
lot,
is in some
still,
circles.
yeah, of like just what he was able to do here, and that's why we say, because even when I played the trailer of,
Hmm.
Silent Night, it had, the master of action, John Woo and things of that nature there, um, and the guy's back. And you can say why I was kind of disappointed here is like you watched Hard Boiled and how inventive it is with a lot of the action scenes here and a lot of what they did. You know what I mean with Chow Yun Fat here of him
Hmm.
sliding around, jumping around with the guns and the two guns and him doing all this other stuff. Like you mentioned the like that scene where he's just jumping in the air there. I mean, this movie inspired a lot of other action movies.
Inspired Max Payne,
Max Payne.
inspired the Wachowskis. They did a
Yeah.
whole Matrix style of action and fighting.
Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? And so but now, now that we're in 2023, it's like, well, now we have movies like John Wick, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Now we have movies like Taken. Now, you know what I mean? It's like they've
Hmm.
taken that and then they've expanded upon it and they've built, they kinda done a lot more creative and great things with the whole action genre now. And
Yeah.
so it's like now you coming back into it, John Woo is kinda like, "Hey, man, you gotta step your game up. There's some new kids in town
Hmm.
that kinda taking that title of, master act." Now, like, John Wick is the new thing that people kinda go like, "Hey, this is maybe considered one of the greatest action films ever," series of action films was there 4 now. Um and the thing about John Wick is, this is a simple revenge movie too. Guy, dog gets killed by some Russian assholes, gangsters, he goes and kills them. Super simple too. But we're here, and then even though you have a similar situation, even though that it's kind of like, he's not mute in the movie, there's not really much dialogue from Keanu Reeves as John
No,
Wick. You know,
he has maybe 5, 10 sentences throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's about it. So it's a very simple movie, but what was effective about it is that there was a personality there. Even
Hmm.
without the main character, even as being this vessel of vengeance and anger, it's like there was other personality with the other characters. You felt for it, like even this little dog here, there was a whole backstory about the dog and connection
Hmm.
to his dead wife. So you kind of felt something there. You got some time to spend with him and the dog before his dog gets ripped away from him.
Hmm.
So it's like here in this, it's like, okay, in Silent Night, it's like you're supposed to feel for this guy. He lost his kid, but I mean, no offense, but I don't know that little motherfucker. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know that kid. It's like, at least spend some time with us and the kid and the
Hmm.
family and set that up first and then have it ripped away from him. And that would be kind of interesting there. Um, and then even when they show like flashbacks and stuff of, when he's playing with his kid, you don't even get to hear him talk. You don't even get to hear the kid talk. So it's like,
No.
so there's no it's like, I don't know why the decision was really made there. I don't know why they decided to do that, but that just seemed very weird to me because there's no connection and personality with any of this stuff. Another great revenge film, here, something like RoboCop. RoboCop is
Oh,
just as yeah, go ahead. What you were gonna say?
oh yeah, one of the best 80s movies ever made, and one of the best action movies ever made. It's
Yeah,
pitch perfect script, pitch perfect way it utilizes its scenes and characters, and yet allows them to have a bit of depth at the same time.
yeah.
It has a lot of personality.
Has a lot of and it's not just, I mean, there's some good action scenes here in RoboCop, but what really makes it work is, 1, you hate the villains. Like, you hate Kirk, Lockwood here, Smith.
Oh yeah.
Like, you really wanna see him get revenge on these guys because of what they did to him. It's like, "Man, I can't wait till him go and get these and fuck these guys up." You know what I mean? So when you finally
Yeah.
see it, it just it all culminates and all makes for something exciting. Here, you're just kinda with no dialogue, no personality. You listening to noise and just watching stuff happen. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
basically it.
This is a weird mix. There was a made for a Netflix only movie years ago called Mute that this movie reminded me of in
And
a
that was the
way.
movie with, Alexander Skarsgård.
It
And
was. And unlike Mute, where, at the time, I think when I reviewed it, I thought it was like pretty okay. I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was okay. It was an interesting premise. Now, I will say this about Silent Night. It doesn't get as just pointlessly boring or weird as Mute was, where I just didn't understand what the point of the movie was to an extent, or what they were going with.
mm,
But At least with Silent Night, I did get vibes with it where it's this weird mix of Mute with Max Payne with and other like and Punisher, for example. It just felt like a weird cocktail mix of all that. And I think what John Woo is good at, and it never particularly, unfortunately, quite gels, and it never quite does better than any of those individually. Even if like say what you want about Mute, at least it's an interesting, weird little movie. I don't understand the tone, but it's an interesting, weird movie. I've never seen anything else like it. With this, I will say the one good thing that John Woo is good at, and he's always been good at, is he's always been good at making broad emotions. He's always been a very broad emotions kind of guy, where everything's explosive, everything is elegant, everything is huge, and subtlety has been there on occasion, but I think he does do the over emotion part well. Where this movie unfortunately stumbles is he just doesn't have, either he's unwilling or he's not quite allowed to just give that unrelenting action and use of camera angles that he's done in the past. This setup could have worked. You could have had a mostly silent protagonist, kind of like Drive,
Mhm.
where it's a mostly kind of quieter action movie. You could have that entire premise is it's a silent night, or he gets, instead of mute, he instead of having no voice, he can't hear anything, and we're from his entire perspective, we're just hearing music. There's a But you can only carry that for so long unless you get very creative, very creative. And this, I don't think quite matches up with the creativity I've seen him in the past, where it can kind of fulfill that promise of the premise.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
especially like I noted before, I wanted to see more Christmas themed stuff. This is called Silent Night. The whole point is both bad things happen before or during Christmas, and Christmas kind of is an afterthought. I know we're in Los Angeles, I get it, but there's a little bit should he should have killed people with some Santa Claus themed
You
stuff,
want to
or
see,
I want to
like,
see Violent Night. Okay, I just want to
yeah,
see Violent Night again.
you want to see that, David Harbour movie where he was.
Yeah, at least
Yeah,
that, like that at least was a fun time that took itself just seriously enough to kind of have fun, to have good action moments, but silly enough with itself to not take itself too seriously.
yeah, in this movie, which I think came out, last year,
Yeah, last year.
and it was, yeah, David Harbour, he was Santa Claus, and he was killing people with candy canes and, jingle bells and all this other shit, Christmas ornaments and shit,
Yeah.
all that other stuff there. This movie, I mean, I kinda felt like, it was too much of just the gag of like, "Hey, it's, R-rated Santa Claus,"
Mhm.
"Hey, look, it's Santa Claus killing people," but I get what you're saying with Silent Night. I guess you coulda, maybe added some more
Just a
Christmas
little
stuff,
bit more.
just a little bit more there
I
to.
A little bit more decorations, a little bit more in the theming, a little bit more of him. I would have also appreciated a little bit more if you're going to build up to, and you're not going to care much about the story and things being ripped from your hands. Yeah, kind of. I have the family dynamic be there, and then once he loses his voice, and his son, have that be the catalyst, and that there's no like way he can truly express himself, but through this desire to get revenge, and all the things that brought him joy, while they still kind of do, they only remind him of his son and the things that he's lost, and the only way he can kind of find a way to like fix a problem is just to take care of it head on. You could have still made this movie work in the same time frame, in the same length, but it just needed some more tweaking. This movie needed like one or two more drafts to get just right.
Yeah. And Joe Kinnaman, I
Mhm.
mean, he's in a tough position. We speak about
Yeah,
RoboCop. I mean, he was in the RoboCop
he
remake
was,
there.
which
Um,
wasn't too bad. I honestly wish if that it's not a bad movie on its own merits if you don't connect it to the original RoboCop. They could have just called it Cyborg Man, and it actually, they honestly, if they did, it probably would have had
yeah,
more distance from the RoboCop movie and could have been more of its own thing, which it was kind of sort of trying to be.
yeah. So I mean, him as being, this is a tough position because it's,
Yeah.
as an actor, with no voice, there's some actors who can pull it off with just, just their face, just expressions, just their body language. I think for the most part, I think he conveys it pretty well. I
Mhm.
mean, some people who are like the masters of doing that is like people like Andy Serkis,
Mhm.
you know what I mean, and people like that. They're just like was just you can see all their emotions just through their face and then their body. Like they're really good at that. And here I think he does a fine job. And obviously, physically, he's a very physically imposing guy. He's a pretty tall guy,
Oh, yeah.
a very big guy, so he takes up frame pretty well. You can believe that he can take out these guys. Um, and there's a little kind of montage thing of him, doing the whole YouTube tutorials of, things like
That
hand-to-hand
was
comp,
funny.
and how he goes to the gun range and do all that stuff, gets on
I
his
do appreciate that he's not good at it at first, and it actually takes time.
yeah. I don't know. I
He
don't know. Oh, go
Mhm.
ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead. No,
sorry.
you go ahead.
Well, I don't know the exact, time frame here, but you know what I mean? It's like, he's able to just get into a Dodge and then drive around and do,
I
wheel
mean,
spins and then shoot people also accurately. It's like, man, that like, okay.
It's from April to November.
Okay. Uh,
So he had over half a year
okay. He had
of
half a year.
consistently going and doing the same thing over and over and over again and
Okay.
burning money like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, that's just the big. I mean, like you said, the action scenes, some of them are, they're pretty good. I mean, they're very well shot. I mean, there's some good car chase scenes here
Mhm.
that have worked really well. That are really well done.
It's kinda
Um,
sad that it's just squibs, though, some of them.
yeah, I mean, they're very obviously squid. I mean, you could just tell. I mean, it's like, damn,
Digital
man.
squibs, we mean, not the actual squibs that make it fun, like in Hard Boiled or RoboCop, or because those take time to clean up and
Yeah. Which I thought was very telling in it. The biggest thing is just like I said, this movie just has no real personality to it. I
Mhm.
mean, you just watch it. I mean, I just wasn't really that invested in the story, and I didn't really care all that much was
Yeah.
happening here. Um, I wish it had something more there to hang on to there. And yeah, I mean, besides for some cool action scenes, it's like,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think there's anything that's like, man, you really got to go see this. I mean, I think there's maybe much better options that you could just
Yeah.
go see. Which is a shame because, like I said, John Woo, legendary guy, legendary
Mhm.
director. I was kind of excited for it, and looking at the
Yeah.
trailer for it, I was like, "Hey, this looks okay." I mean, just a basic revenge shoot 'em up type movie here, and it might satisfy just that basic. If you just want to see something very, very basic action wise, with really not that much else, maybe it's gonna maybe satisfy that part. But other than that, yeah, I just think this is kind of weak overall. But for me, I just would give it a kind of a low stream it kind of tier, middle of the road kind of stream it. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kinda right there with you. I had, I had a good time watching this, but I wasn't this wasn't the kind of movie that I would've just gone, "Oh, man, I totally gotta get out of the theaters and check this out." This was I could have seen this on streaming and sit back, grabbed a beer and had a good time, had some eggnog, you know, and kick back and watch this. So I think for the most part, what it tries to do, it succeeds. I think we just both wish it was done a bit better. It, and I think that's the hardest part. Is there are parts of it that works in this movie. It needed more flavor. It needed more personality to really stand out among the just tons of action films that are out now. Many of them, which were obvious copycats from what John Woo originally created, were inspired by his earlier works.
Yeah,
Does he miss the mark? I don't think so. I think this delivers what it's trying to deliver, but I think it just barely does so. It delivers it just flat as a board. It
mm,
rests itself exactly on that board and goes, "That's about as you're gonna get. That's about as much you're gonna get." Sorry.
yeah. And I think the pacing of it too is pretty terrible too. I think if you're
Mhm.
expecting like, because like I hate to keep going back, but like John Wick,
Yeah.
it pretty is like it gets
Mhm.
off pretty early. Like it's not that much of time between like okay the incident
15,
happens.
20 minutes. We're gone. We're ready. We're already kicking up. We're already going through this now.
Yeah, he's like working his way up, and he's okay. The thing has already happened. We
Yeah.
we
We
already
don't
going.
really get it. We don't really get to the action part of it until about halfway.
Yeah,
Oh,
y-
and don't even get me started on the whole detective side plot.
Yeah, the fact that he was able to gather all this information on this gang and do all this, I was like, "Okay," I mean,
Like, wow, I guess you're really just terrible at this job.
yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, again, I mean, this is not much character with because you don't see much of what Kid Cudi's doing, or I mean, maybe in a movie like this, you would at least see a little bit from the detective's point of view of like what the detective is doing. You know what I mean? Or a scene where he's talking and going like, "Yeah, we've been trying to catch these guys for a while now, and we got a big file on them, and or something." You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
no, something like that. But
I mean, it's good to see Kid Cudi, getting work, spreading his wings, doing other things.
yeah, he's I've seen him in a lot more movies now. So yeah, good for Kid Cudi.
And he does enough with the I wouldn't say he's amazing or great, but he does enough with the limited range he's given and limited material to like give like a
Yeah,
few like okay nods. But yeah, this really is resting solely on Joel Kinnaman and John Woo's direction, and I think they both just kind of barely keep it up. I think this is just a pretty solid to even just a high or medium stream it. It's just like just a solid stream it, just depending on how you're feeling, really.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. So both give it a kind of a medium stream for maybe if this came on Netflix,
Yeah,
just stream okay. Oh, okay. You
yeah,
know,
you're like a high stream it. Oh, that was like a slightly above average. Oh, okay.
yeah. So yeah,
Considering the trash that's on there.
yeah. So two streamings for
Yeah.
John Woo's Silent Night. Yeah.